You so much, Rabbi Mark. It's, as always, such a treat to be here with you and with Natalie and Anmol and everyone who has carved out time and space in your day to show up in this way, not only for yourself, but for each of us. Each of us is really needed when it comes to practice. And we're meant to engage in these practices in community whenever possible. And so you might just take a moment to pat yourself on the back or rest a hand on the heart, just to offer a sense of gratitude to yourself for showing up and also to each of us for making this time and space, as Rabbi Mark said, a taste of Shabbat in the midst of the day, which is such a beautiful way to think about it. So again, I'm Alison or Ali, she, her, hers. I'm calling in today from the lands of the Piscataway and Nacotchtank peoples, which is Washington, D.C. And let's just take a minute right now to keep arriving together. Before I offer any words of reflection, just a chance to remember, as some of you have heard me say before, that mindfulness is a misnomer. It's really bodyfulness or embodied mindful awareness, or this recognition that this whole body, this moment's body, is sending us signals moment by moment by moment if we're able to attune and connect with them. And so you might just sense, what would the body benefit from in this moment? Maybe a few deep breaths would support arrival. Maybe sipping your tea with full awareness. Maybe it's a stretch. It could be a yawn. Anything is welcome. Taking the next full minute to just attune to this moment's body with compassionate awareness. As you sense you're also being held by the collective body, all of us here, all of us human, all of us choosing to show up. And if whatever it is that you're doing to more fully arrive feels like, oh, I'd like to do a bit more of this, by all means, please do. And I'm just going to move into a bit of context, a bit of framing for the meditation practice we'll be engaging in today. So yesterday here at the Daily Sit, Rabbi Robin Damsky offered a really beautiful teaching rooted in both last week's Torah portion or Parsha, Terumah, and this week's Tetzaveh. And these parshiot are deeply interrelated. They come from Shemot, the book of Exodus, and they hone in on important construction and service-related details or information about the Mishkan, the holy portable dwelling place or tabernacle that the Israelites are building in the desert. And during yesterday's meditation, Rabbi Robin used the word Mishkan metaphorically, inviting each of us to bring curiosity to our own internal Mishkan or Mikdash, our own inner tabernacle, sanctuary, or home. So I want to build on this perspective by circling back to last week's Parsha, in which the source of life, or the divine source, the beingness that was, is, will be, the oneness, aka God, tells the Israelites to build the tabernacle and says, Asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Make for me a holy space that I may dwell in them. Betocham, in them. So many commentators have puzzled over this. If the Israelites are being asked to build a singular tabernacle or mishkan, why is God saying v'shachanti betocham, that I may dwell in them? Shachanti, I may dwell. One interpretation is that God was making clear, each of you is a dwelling, a home, a mishkan, a sanctuary, and I will dwell in all of you. I will dwell in all of you. This line I have a really personal, visceral connection to, a visceral response to, because my journey to practice began at age 21 in my senior year of college when I realized I was afraid to be in quiet by myself for more than a minute because it felt frightening to be with my own body, mind, and heart since I wasn't sure how to meet, befriend, skillfully tend to the challenging emotional visitors that were making themselves known. But at the same time, there was this deeply intuitive sense, Allie, this is the only home. This body, mind, heart, spirit, this is the only home I'm going to have my entire life. This holy, portable, temporary home. And I want to learn how to make it a home. I want to learn how to make it a mishkan, a sanctuary, not a place of perfect peace, but a sacred space for the whole range of internal experiences that remind us we're alive. And also a sacred space for growing compassion and wisdom and joy and skills for how to ride the waves of being a wholehearted, imperfect, beautifully tender human being. And so I started meditating. Buddhist meditation, Jewish meditation, Buju, Jubu practices, and beyond. And I began to get a taste, and this is really why we're all here, of what it would be like to relate to the inner world and to other aspects of life differently, to not identify so closely with or feel trapped by passing emotions, thoughts, sensations, but instead to see them as messengers and learn how to cultivate discernment and empowerment in relationship to them. The first time I sat down to meditate, it felt like getting off of a conveyor belt. And I realized it was going to take time, guidance, and most likely some divine intervention to learn how to dwell within. Or as Rabbi Alan Lu, Zikrono Livracha, puts it, we are conditioned to choose pleasure and to reject pain. But the truth is, any moment of our life fully inhabited, any feeling fully felt, any immersion in the full depth of life can be the source of deep joy. You might just sense if that resonates. And then at the end of my first retreat, I recently found the journal from it. I had written, the world is such a complex and difficult place. Why add to the suffering by being at war with myself? Or as Maya Angelou offers, I long, as does every human being, to be at home wherever I find myself. I long, as does every human being, to be at home wherever I find myself, to be a mishkan, to be a sanctuary. So with this in mind, let's move into a guided practice. I'm going to be guiding us through for the next 15 minutes or so. And as you find your way to whatever posture feels right, it does just feel important to name that if anything arises during this practice that feels beyond your range of resilience or feels like a bit too much, just remembering the empowerment of being your own tender. And you might open your eyes or shift your gaze, shake things out, stop meditating, take a drink of water. Gentle, gentle, gentle. What would the world be like if we could proceed with greater gentleness? So as you take whatever posture allows you to feel both awake, alert, and also restful, relaxed. So maybe there's an uprightness to the body without rigidity. You might be sitting or standing or lying down. Any of these work. Again, trusting your own intuitive knowing. Feel free to close your eyes, soften your gaze, turn inward in whatever way feels right. And if it supports you in transitioning into practice, with gentleness and care, at any point, feel free to rest a hand on the heart or a hand on the belly or both. This reminder, here I am, Hineni, humaning with other humans. Hinenu, here we are. It may be that you sense into a bit of gratitude for the opportunity to practice. What a gift. What a blessing. And if you'd like to, taking a few deep breaths, maybe 2 or 3, supporting this moment's nervous system and coming into greater balance. And when it feels right, just letting the sensations of breathing return to their natural rhythm. Inflow becoming outflow, outflow becoming inflow. Attuning to where you're supported by the earth, the floor, the seat beneath. Just letting gravity do its work. And the mind may be already down a riverbank of thought or emotion. Attention may have drifted or wandered. That's not a problem. It's just the nature of the mind. You might take a snapshot of where it wandered off to, and then gently returning your attention to this moment of sitting, this moment of aliveness, this moment of breath, counteracting distraction and fragmentation, inviting in a sense of coherence and integration. And you might also just check in with your heart. On this Thursday, how's the heart in this moment? Right here, right now, without anything to fix or do or change. Maybe there's some contraction or tingling, spaciousness or joy. It could be not much is happening. Honoring whatever is here in the heart. Permission for the heart, body, and mind to be as they are. This too belongs. And from this place of being more present, more here, more available, perhaps more coherent. If you'd like to, you might drop in this inquiry and experiment with it. In the moments when I feel most at home, how does this feel in the body? The feeling of being at home, how does this feel? It could be that when you give yourself permission to be yourself, you feel more at home and there's a sense of warmth in the chest. Or maybe when you're with a particular person or a dog or cat or in a particular place, there's a full body sense of being able to rest, be. Or it could be when you sense divinity dwelling in you, Shakhanti, that the chest, the belly, the breath can settle in a way that allows you to return to yourself and in turn show up more fully to life. So we're going to use this as an anchor, a particular instance of feeling at home. So just choosing one instance that conjures up a sense of being at home, sensing where this makes itself known in the body and resting there. Just staying receptive, allowing the feeling of returning home, of experiencing an inner Mishkan, inner Mikdash, inner sanctuary. And so we'll take the next few minutes to practice together in quiet, letting this embodied wisdom of an internal home, a sense of being at home in the midst of it all, letting that act as a home base, a touchstone, a refuge. in this moment, sensing body, breath, heart. Honoring whatever is here now, part and parcel of the sacred experience of being human. As the poet Rumi reminds us, we are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home. Home to the inner Mishkan, home to community, home to love, home. You might take a moment as this practice comes to a close to again express deep thanks to yourself for making time, making space, and extending that sense of gratitude to everyone in this community, this kahila, and everyone across the planet in this moment who is doing the best they can. Thank you so much for your practice.
Thank you so much, Ali, for guiding us so beautifully again today. Friends, we seal this really beautiful practice with an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, it's an opportunity to honor your loved ones. You can put their names in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. And as always, if you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask you please stay present to support those who are for a few minutes. And if you're joining me for the Kaddish, please rise in body or in spirit. Thanks to Natalie for sharing the words on the screen. You can unmute at this time.
Buchdahl, Vikadash, Shmeva,
Divrei
Kevin,
Pehom
Chayit Chobek
Israel
Israel, Bisman Karib,
Karif Amen.
Amen.
Shmei Rabba Mubarak
Rabba
Le'olam
Mivavash,
Shoma
Lemay Alemaya,
Shtabak V'Par
Shabbat
V'Etmanan V'Etnaseh
Vitale, Vitala, Shmei Zekucha,
Ilan Choja
Kata Vashirata, Tushbachata,
V'Kata
Vanachmata,
V'Nama
Biama,
Amen.
Amen.
Shlama Rabba Mishmaya
Marab
Ve'im
Nishmaya
Amen
Vachim
V'Kol
Alina
Yisrael
Israel. Amen.
Oseh Shalom
Shalom
B'Mirav
Birama, Asa Shalom, Nibal Israel,
Ival
Bal
Kol
Shvei
Yisrael
Tibal,
Yoshvei Tevel Kumru Amen.
Shalom, Israel, Yafol
Harmony,
Amen.
peace to the
Shalom Aleichem.
Israel, and
Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Rabbi Benjamin Ross will be leading us to sit into Shabbat on our daily sit tomorrow, and we hope you can join us then. You're also invited, if you prefer, just to continue to sit with that beautiful guidance offered by Alison Cohen. You can turn off the sound on your device and just feel the support of our community and continue your practice. You can join us for a conversation or to ask a question. And if you'd like to do that, you can put your questions in the chat. Just if it is a question, please write question all in caps, and I'll try to work your question into the conversation. Ali, thank you so much. Let's bring you in here. Here we go. Okay, you're muted still. Thank you, as always, for this really exquisite practice. I really appreciated your vulnerability and talking about how you got started with this
Mm,
practice back as a college senior. And that stuck with me through the whole sit. Actually, I was just thinking about, the thrust of this practice being about noticing what it feels like to be at home in our experience. And what I was, I guess, imagining was that experience of feeling I'm not at home, at that stage.
yeah.
So I just want to invite you to explore, if you would explore a little bit more with us about, what that means and how do we know when we're at home. Just to unpack that a little bit more, not intellectually, but like, how do we, how do we, well, maybe it's a personal question, really. Like, how do you sense when you are touching into that sense of being at home and when you're distant from it?
Mm,
What's what are the signals in
yeah.
our bodies and our minds that tell us, what where we are in relationship to being at home?
Thank you so much for that beautiful question, Rabbi Mark. And it's interesting. I'm thinking about teaching high school. I used to teach high school in Brooklyn, and one of the teaching techniques we were encouraged to use was a non-example. So, what is it not? And that can help shine light on what it might be. And I think one of the misconceptions in this practice is that if I'm feeling at home in myself, then everything is hunky-dory internally. Everything's copacetic,
Yeah.
only experiencing either neutral or pleasant, what in Buddhism would be called Vedana or feeling tone or valence. I'm not experiencing unpleasantness. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, part of what this practice is inviting us into, and you were asking about my own personal experience, what is it like to have a whole slew of things moving through the system? And in
Hmm.
the midst of it all, have a sense of rootedness, have a sense of solid. Solid is an interesting word choice. I can get to that in a moment, but solid enough foundation. There's in a sense, a stillness or a knowing or a untouched clarity. And
Hmm.
that is there simultaneously with the waves that are moving through. And because as human beings, we can become so identified with passing ephemeral experiences. We can lose touch with the depth of stability, resource,
Hmm.
homeness. For example, what's coming to mind right now is I have a few dear friends who I really think of as um, people where when I'm with them, I'm truly at home. They see me so clearly and with such love in the midst of all that is happening in my life in any given moment. Hopefully, I do the same for them. And there's a sense of knowing, there's a sense of being able to rest in a kind of truth and love, capital L, and homeness, capital H, that is much deeper than or truer than whatever might be moving through on this ephemeral level. And so I think in my younger years, I was really identified with particular emotional states. This anxiety is me. This shame is me. This, instead of these are messengers that are visiting. These
Hmm.
messengers might be leading me to seek therapy or connect more deeply with friends or go to services more regularly to be reminded of something much larger than myself. That
Hmm.
also reminds me paradoxically that in me, there's something there that I can come home to, a
Hmm.
stillness beneath the noise. And the
Yeah.
image that often comes up is the quietude at the bottom of a lake, that even in the midst of ripples at the top of the lake, at the bottom of the lake, there's something there that can just be.
Hmm. I love that image. Love that image. Pam's question, there's a question from Pam, which I think, relates to this. Maybe you even just answered that, but she's asking about what about how do we feel? She's using the word comfortable, but I think you were this is a stand-in for what you were describing as being at home. How do we feel at home during meditation when we're having basically when we're experiencing unpleasantness, whether it's in our body or in our mind? For she's example she's giving is when we're hungry or in pain. And maybe it feels like you kind of answered it there in the sense of the having that, the turbulence on the surface, but being able to stay connected to the stillness underneath it. Is that what you would say? Is that where
Well,
you
I
want to go with
I think, Pam, this is such a beautiful question, and there are two words in it that really stand out to me during meditation.
that? Mm-hmm.
So, during meditation, if you notice, oh, I'm really hungry,
Mm-hmm.
it may be that as you tend to this home, this body, mind, heart, spirit home, and you get this important message, there's hunger here.
Mm-hmm.
It may be, I'm just thinking about one of my siblings who has diabetes. If he realized that in the midst of a sit, it would be wise for him to stop meditating, go eat, and make sure his blood sugar is okay, to take care of this home in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the words during meditation, that's really important. Let's say you notice pain while you're practicing. Well, that requires discernment. It may be that there's value, especially if in your day-to-day life, there's a tendency to run from the room metaphorically anytime pain arises, to just meet your edge, as Tara Brach would say, and soften. Meet your edge and soften. Stay with the pain a bit longer and soften around it. But then it may also be that you need to move, or it could be that, let's say you're sitting in a meditation and you realize my appendix is about to rupture. Please go to the ER. And I say this seriously because this is actually a widespread misunderstanding. When we're meditating, we're not just supposed to muscle through. We're supposed to remember that meditation is meant to refine and polish our discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that we really do need to stop meditating. And
What
so,
about sorry, I'm just sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, but I'm like thinking about lesser things. That those are some serious things, but I'm thinking about something that could be very common, like an itch, right?
yeah.
Feeling an itch on the leg, right? Where you say, oh, there's an itch there, and you could recognize the instinctive reaction to I've got to scratch that itch, right?
Yeah.
Versus can I just be with that itch for a moment and see if that passes? Like, what's your suggestion on that micro level for things like that?
So I actually think this is a really interesting, these examples, Mark, which are classic examples and really important ones, the itch in
Mm-hmm.
particular. This is an exciting area to experiment. I don't actually think there's one right answer to this, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're noticing an itch in your experience, and you think to yourself, well, I'm meditating. I shouldn't scratch the itch.
Mm-hmm.
But then this intuitive knowing comes up. Wow, in my day-to-day life, there's this part that often I'm thinking about internal family systems, that framework that comes up that says, don't be kind to yourself. Oh, well, maybe in the meditation, that's a time to practice being kind to yourself and
Mm-hmm.
scratch the itch
Mm-hmm.
lovingly and with care. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Oh, sweetheart, you're itching. You can scratch it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or it could be that you notice the urgency and there's a sense to almost compulsively do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can note compulsion, compulsion to create a little space from it. Compulsion, compulsion. And then rest back in, okay, I noticed urgency about something that wasn't really urgent. And I was able to relax back a little bit and create a bit more space.
Mm-hmm.
One of my first teachers, whose name was also Alison, she would say, while you're meditating, if you notice the desire to move, there's pain, you want to move, and you're trying to decide whether or not to do it. Do I hunker down with this or do I move? She said, take a moment and just consider in your day-to-day life, what's your conditioned pattern? If your conditioned pattern in your day-to-day life is to hunker down with suffering and kind of drown in it and narrow in on it and not see anything else and not move, then move and be a little gentler with yourself. If your tendency, the second there's discomfort, is to try to escape it, sit with it a little bit longer. And so I like to think of meditation and the realm of meditation as a playground, an
Hmm.
experimental playground
Hmm.
that's deep. It's not a place to bypass patterns in the rest of our lives. It's a place to experiment with being less in a state of autopilot reactivity
Right.
and more in a state of responsive compassion.
That's a fantastic answer, I think. Thank you so much for that. And I think that's extremely helpful. Um, I would like, we don't have a lot, don't have a lot of time. I have a big question that doesn't have, we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to raise it anyway, just so we can maybe something we'll pick up again at another point. But it has to do with theology, really, because we start, you started off with the Torah portion of the last two, last week's Torah portion, this week's Torah portion about the building of the Mishkan and about this idea of creating a mikdash, a sanctuary that God might dwell within us. And then, you segued into feeling at home,
Mm.
making a home for the divine and our feeling at home and a little bit, you know, I don't know, uh, not criticizing that, like pointing out the relationship between those two things. It's almost as if we're saying, may I make a mikdash in which I can fully dwell and be at home in myself. Yes, am I right?
That's
Okay,
beautiful.
okay.
Sorry, my screen froze for a moment, so I missed a little bit. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay.
So in terms of like that it's this idea of making a home for the divine is closely related to making a home for ourselves or noticing that we're not feeling at home in our experience, and that making us feel more distant from the divine. I guess here's the question, and it may just be a question that we'll leave there, but so much of the kind of Jewish mythic narrative is about exile and coming home, right? About this juxtaposition between the yearning for home and being in exile. And classically, there is definitely assignment of blame for exile, right? The Jewish people sinned and therefore they're exiled from their land and have to, and they'll come back. Um, or we're in Egypt and we're going to go back home. Um, but we're working with a model here which doesn't have that kind of causality that sort of says we fluctuate as human beings, like you pointed it out beautifully during the sit, that we're sitting with our humanness, and in our humanness, it's not possible for us to feel at home 100% of the time. It's the nature of the mind, the nature of being human, to wander to and fro and then kind of come back home and then wander and come back. So um I guess I just wanted to lift that up. I'm thinking about there's a different theology or understanding of the divine, which says that, oh, the divine is with us also in that distance from home and assisting us in the process of coming back, as opposed to, oh no, I'm far from home, I'm abandoned, this is all my fault in some way, there's something wrong, right?
Mhm.
So I wanted to lift that up. I don't know if you, in the 1 minute we have left, can I don't know if that brings up anything for you, but I just wanted to name that. It just was interesting to me as a Buju, as you're saying, that it just kind of, to me, points out a little bit of the interface between those worlds.
Beautiful.
Yes, right?
Yeah, and what's coming up, and I'm sorry again, Rabbi Mark, if I missed some of what you were saying earlier because of the tech,
That's
but
okay.
I'm thinking of the Zen phrase not to with a hyphen, not to. Some things are both distinct and simultaneously interwoven. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I'm hearing, and I love what you're pointing out, is that, and this is a paradox, which is basically true of anything worth paying attention to on the spiritual path. It's
Yes.
paradoxical
Amen.
that we can simultaneously remember more and more frequently. We're practicing tshuva, right? We're
Hmm.
remembering to come home, that home
Yes.
is even a part of our experience and that we can return again and again, and that the coming home is, if this language resonates, full of the divine. And simultaneously, and this is
Hmm.
the not too, that the divine is present in all of it. The
Yes.
leaving, the coming back, the leaving, the coming back. All of that is divine.
Hmm.
And part of why we're practicing is to have the experience of coming home to the fullness of who we are more and more frequently, which doesn't negate the fact that all of it is divine. So that's such a cool paradox that we're practicing returning because the system yearns to feel more integrated, more whole, more capable of dveikut, really, of
Hmm.
this connection with, or the beingness that is divine, and simultaneously the whole process is divine.
Well, Allison, it took you 3 minutes to say that, but that was fantastic. That was
Well,
fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
Rabbi Mark, there's literally nothing I would rather do than sit with you and chat about these things. So I just want to say for all of us here, I mean, this is a priceless blessing to get to be in community like this, guided and also held by Rabbi Mark, who I just feel so honored to be in connection with. And yeah, just noticing a lot of emotions in this morning, in this moment, mainly gratitude. So
Yeah,
thank you.
well, right back at you, Allison. Thank you so much. Um, I don't want to end without putting a link again in the chat, by the way, for Allison's newsletter, but also just one more plug for this retreat, which I mean, I think that last little conversation was probably a great little advertisement for this Buddhist Jewish retreat in Virginia that has a few more spots. So somebody is going to be very lucky to get to that retreat in March. Um, so check that out. Natalie, if you wouldn't mind putting the link in there
We've
for the
got 20
newsletter.
people so far and about 5 spots left. So it'll
Okay.
be a treat if you want to join us.
Okay. Let's see if Natalie's got it. You got it, Natalie? And ah,
Okay.
okay. Oh, we did. I thought I. Oh, we got it. Okay, great. It's there. All right. Well, we're a little bit over time, but as always, such a pleasure and blessing. Thanks so much, Ali, for leading us today. Each of you for being here. Let's sit into Shabbat together with Rabbi Benjamin Ross tomorrow. We'll see you then, everyone. Any blessings.